Stirling is a city shaped by king's conflict and stone. Beneath its castles, streets, and quiet corners, older stories endure. Here are 8 haunted places where history is said to refuse silence. Stirling Castle. Rising high above the surrounding landscape, Stirling Castle has long been a symbol of royal power, conflict, and survival. Its stone walls have witnessed coronations, sieges, and centuries of human ambition. Yet alongside its recorded history, the castle carries a quieter reputation, shaped by figures said to appear without warning. Among the most enduring of these is the Green Lady. She is described as a misty female figure, often seen moving swiftly through corridors or standing briefly near stairways. According to legend, she was a lady in waiting to Mary, Queen of Scots. One version of the story claims she saved the young queen when a fire broke out in her chamber, sacrificing her own life in the process. Another tells of a woman driven to despair after her father accidentally killed the man she loved. In both tellings, her presence is said to warn of danger, particularly fire. One of the most famous encounters occurred in the castle kitchens, where a cook reportedly collapsed in shock after realizing the Green Lady was standing silently beside him, watching his work. When others arrived, she was gone, leaving only a lingering unease behind. A second apparition, known as the Pink Lady, is also associated with the castle. Some believe she is Mary herself, while others say she was the wife of a commander who stayed behind during the English assault of 1303. Persuaded to flee while her husband fought on, she is said to wander, still searching for him, along the route between the castle and the church near Lady's Rock. Footsteps are another recurring feature. Visitors and staff have described the sound of someone climbing staircases that no longer exist or walking along corridors that were altered centuries ago. These sounds often stop abruptly, as though the walker has stepped into nothing. More recently, a kilted figure known as the Highland Ghost has been reported. Calm and solid in appearance, he has been mistaken for a tour guide, only to vanish when approached. Skeptics point to imagination shaped by history and expectation. Yet for many, Stirling Castle feels alert rather than empty. The sense is not one of threat, but of watchfulness, as though the castle itself remembers every life that passed through its gates. And as we leave this fortress behind, the shadows lengthen, guiding us toward a hotel where sorrow is said to echo softly through the walls. The Dreadnought Hotel, standing at the edge of Cowane, where the highlands begin to assert themselves against the lowlands, the Dreadnought Hotel presents an appearance of quiet respectability. Its exterior offers little hint of the stories said to linger within, yet for generations, guests and staff have spoken of a presence that refuses to fade into history. The most frequently mentioned figure is that of a young girl. She is said to appear silently in certain rooms and corridors, her expression distant, her movements slow and restrained. Her origins are uncertain, and it is this ambiguity that has allowed multiple legends to take hold. One version claims the girl was the wife of the hotel's founder, Francis McNabb. According to this story, she was deliberately sealed within the walls of the building, her fate hidden to protect reputation and wealth. Another, more commonly repeated tale suggests she was a servant who became pregnant by McNabb and was thrown from an upper window, her death dismissed and quietly forgotten. Alongside her, a second presence is often reported. This one is known not by sight, but by sound. Guests have described sobbing and weeping coming from a particular bedroom, usually late at night when the hotel is otherwise still. Some believe these cries belong to an illegitimate child of McNabb, said to have been drowned in a well in the basement. The sound is described as soft but persistent, stopping suddenly when investigated. McNabb himself is also reputed to haunt the hotel. Staff have spoken of an oppressive feeling in certain areas, as though someone is standing just out of sight. Doors have been found open when previously closed, and footsteps have been heard pacing along corridors long after guests have retired. Skeptics point to the power of suggestion, especially in an old building with a complex layout and varied acoustics. Pipes, floorboards, and changes in temperature can easily produce unfamiliar sounds. These explanations are reasonable, and no official record confirms the darker elements of the legends. Yet what distinguishes the Dreadnought Hotel is the emotional consistency of the accounts. Those who experience something unusual often describe sadness rather than fear, a sense of injustice rather than menace. The hotel continues to welcome visitors. Its rooms carefully maintained, its past spoken of only when asked. But as night settles over Callander and the building grows quiet, some believe the Dreadnought still carries voices that were never allowed to speak in life. And from here, we move onward towards sacred ground, where the dead are said to rise not in sorrow, but in silent defiance of the grave. Holy Rude Churchyard. Lying in the shadow of Stirling Castle, Holy Rude Churchyard is one of the city's oldest and most historically significant burial grounds. The church itself has stood for centuries, witnessing royal ceremonies, conflict, and quiet devotion. Yet beyond its architectural importance, the surrounding graveyard has developed a reputation shaped by repeated reports of unexplained appearances. The figure most often associated with Holy Rude is known as the Green Lady. She is described as a faint, almost translucent shape moving slowly among the headstones. One witness recalled that she appeared to float rather than walk, her feet never quite touching the ground. Unlike many reported apparitions, she does not seem bound to a single grave, instead, drifting calmly across the churchyard as though following an unseen path. Encounters with the Green Lady are typically brief. She is glimpsed from a distance, often in low light, and fades before observers can approach. Those who have seen her rarely describe fear. Instead, they speak of an overwhelming stillness, as though the air itself had momentarily thickened. A second and far rarer apparition is said to be Mary Witherspoon, a woman buried here in the early 19th century. Her story is one of disturbance even after death. Only days after her burial in 1822, her grave was violated by body snatchers, part of a grim trade that supplied medical schools with corpses. Although there is no record of her body being recovered, legend suggests her spirit never found rest after this intrusion. Those who claim to have encountered Mary describe a solitary figure, darker and more defined than the Green Lady. She is said to appear briefly before vanishing among the graves, leaving behind a sense of violation rather than peace. Skeptics argue that churchyards naturally invite stories. Shifting shadows, uneven ground, and the emotional weight of burial sites can easily shape perception. These explanations are practical, and Holy Rude remains an active place of worship rather than a site defined by superstition. Yet visitors often remark on how the churchyard feels different from others. Sound seems muted. Time appears to slow. Even during the day, the space carries a solemn attentiveness that lingers longer than expected. Holy Rude Churchyard remains open, its history carefully preserved. But as dusk settles and the castle lights fade above, some believe the dead still walk here, not in anger, but in quiet remembrance. And as we leave this ground of silence and stone, we continue onward toward a building once meant to enforce order, where unrest is said to echo behind locked doors. The Tollbooth, Stirling. Standing at the heart of Stirling's old town, the Tollbooth has long served as a symbol of authority, punishment, and public judgment. Built in the late 16th century, It functioned as a courthouse prison and place of execution. Its narrow cells and stone passages were never intended to offer comfort, and many believe that unrest clings stubbornly to its walls. The most frequently named apparition here is Alan Mayer, a man executed in the 18th century after being convicted of beating his wife to death. Accounts of his hanging describe a chaotic scene. As the noose tightened, Mayer reportedly managed to free his hands and attempted to pull it away. The hangman, acting quickly, seized his legs, using his weight to ensure the execution was completed. The brutality of the moment has become central to the legend that followed. Mayer's ghost is said to appear dressed in period clothing, often glimpsed briefly within the old prison areas. Some claim to see a figure standing near doorways, his presence solid for a moment before dissolving into shadow. Others report hearing heavy footsteps pacing the cells, stopping abruptly as though the walker has reached an unseen boundary. Beyond this central figure, the Tollbooth has accumulated a wide range of reported phenomena. Bottles stored within the building have allegedly shattered without explanation, sometimes in rooms where no one was present. Sounds resembling voices or movement have been heard echoing through the cells, despite the structure being empty at the time. Staff and visitors alike describe sudden changes in atmosphere. Certain rooms feel noticeably colder, while others carry a pressure that encourages people to leave without quite knowing why. These sensations are often strongest in the former holding areas, where prisoners once waited for judgment or execution. Skeptical explanations focus on the building's age and construction. Thick stone walls, confined spaces, and changes in temperature can produce unexpected sounds and sensations. As a historic venue, the Tollbooth is also steeped in stories which can shape expectation. Yet even those who approach with no knowledge of its past often comment on an unease that feels specific rather than imagined. The building seems aware of its own history, holding on to moments of fear and finality. Today, the Tollbooth stands preserved as a landmark of Stirling's civic past. But when the doors close and the interior falls silent, some believe the echoes of justice and punishment still move within. And from this place of confinement and consequence, our journey continues toward a far smaller space where disturbance takes a more intimate and unsettling form. Darnley Coffee House, Stirling. Tucked along Bow Street, Darnley Coffee House appears modest and unassuming. By day, it blends easily into the historic fabric of Stirling's old town, its role firmly rooted in the everyday rhythm of modern life. Yet after hours, when the building falls quiet, it has become associated with a series of disturbances that are difficult to dismiss. Unlike locations tied to a single named apparition, Darnley Coffee House is known for activity that feels impulsive and physical. Staff have repeatedly reported doors slamming without warning, sometimes with enough force to rattle nearby fittings. Shelved items have been found swept onto the floor, as though pushed by an unseen hand, even when the room was empty moments before. Furniture movement is another recurring theme. Chairs have been discovered repositioned overnight, occasionally stacked or turned at odd angles. These changes are often subtle enough to cause momentary confusion before the realization sets in that no one had been present to move them. One of the more unsettling accounts involves a member of staff using the upstairs facilities late at night. While seated, they felt a firm pressure on their shoulder, as though someone were standing close behind them. Turning revealed no one there. The sensation was brief, but vivid enough to prompt an immediate retreat from the room. Visual experiences are rarer, but no less disturbing. A face has been reported peering briefly from the entranceway after closing time, vanishing as soon as it was noticed. Cold spots are frequently mentioned, particularly in narrow corridors and near doorways where temperatures seem to drop suddenly and without explanation. Skeptics suggest practical causes. Old buildings settle and shift. Air pressure changes can move doors. Fatigue and expectation can heighten awareness, especially during late shifts. These explanations are sensible, and no single event has been formally documented as paranormal. What makes Darnley Coffee House unusual is the consistency of the reports. They come from different individuals across different years and describe the same patterns of movement and touch. The activity does not escalate, nor does it follow a clear schedule. It simply intrudes, then withdraws. The building remains open and well used, its reputation known mainly among those who work there. But when the lights dim and the street outside grows still, some believe the space remembers more than it reveals. And as we leave this small but restless setting behind, we turn toward an institution founded on charity and order, where legend claims its creator still refuses to stay buried. Cowane's Hospital. Standing quietly along St. John Street, Cowane's Hospital was founded in the 17th century as a charitable institution for retired merchants and craftsmen. Its solid stone exterior reflects discipline, order, and civic pride. Yet attached to this legacy of generosity is a tradition that returns with remarkable regularity, bound to a single moment each year. The story centers on John Cowane himself, the wealthy merchant who established the hospital and provided for its residents through a carefully structured endowment. According to long-standing legend, Cowane's spirit does not rest easily. Instead, he is said to rise from his tomb in the nearby churchyard at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. Witnesses describe the figure emerging with surprising vitality, moving through the surrounding streets in what has been variously described as a dance or procession. The apparition is not said to appear mournful or threatening. Rather, it carries an unsettling energy, animated and purposeful, as though compelled to revisit the institution he created. Reports of this event are rare, but strikingly consistent. Those who claim to have seen it speak of a shadowy form passing swiftly through the darkness, sometimes accompanied by the faint sound of movement on stone. The sighting is brief, ending as suddenly as it begins, leaving behind an uneasy silence as the new year takes hold. Unlike many haunted sites, Cowane's Hospital is not associated with cold spots, slamming doors, or physical disturbance. Its reputation rests almost entirely on this single, recurring moment. This specificity has led some to suggest the story functions as a form of ritual, marking the turning of the year with a reminder of obligation and legacy. Skeptics argue that the legend reflects seasonal celebration rather than supernatural presence. Midnight gatherings, heightened emotion, and low light can easily shape perception. Over time, repeated telling may have refined the story into a fixed tradition, yet the persistence of the tale has ensured its survival across centuries. Even those unfamiliar with the legend have remarked on the hospital's peculiar atmosphere late at night, describing a sense of anticipation rather than calm. Cowane's Hospital remains a respected historical site, its purpose unchanged. But as the year draws to a close and the streets grow quiet, some believe its founder still walks unwilling to release his hold on what he built. And from here, we move onward toward a fortress whose stones echo with royal footsteps, where one of Scotland's most famous figures is said to return in silence. Doune Castle. Set above the River Tythe, Doune Castle stands as one of Stirling's most recognizable fortresses, its grey stone walls rising with quiet authority. Built in the late 14th century, the castle has served many purposes across time, from royal residence to military stronghold. Yet beyond its architectural significance, Doune has acquired a reputation shaped by one of Scotland's most enduring historical figures. The ghost most often associated with Doune Castle is said to be that of Mary, Queen of Scots. Although her documented visits to the castle were brief, legend insists her presence never fully departed. Witnesses have described seeing a solitary female figure moving slowly through upper chambers, her appearance faint and indistinct, as though formed from shadow rather than flesh. Those who report encountering her speak of a sudden stillness settling over the room. Sound seems to fall away, replaced by an almost reverential silence. The figure is usually described as dressed in period clothing, her posture composed and dignified. She does not speak, nor does she acknowledge those who see her. Instead, she passes quietly through doorways, vanishing before she can be followed. Footsteps are another commonly reported phenomenon. Visitors have spoken of hearing measured steps echoing along stone corridors behind them, only to find the passage empty when they turn. These sounds are often described as unhurried and deliberate, reinforcing the impression of a presence accustomed to authority rather than fear. Skeptics note that Doune Castle's acoustics are unusual. Stone surfaces carry sound unpredictably, and shifting light can easily give rise to illusions of movement. Combined with the powerful association of Mary, Queen of Scots, expectation may shape perception more than experience. Yet even those unaware of the legend have remarked on an atmosphere that feels distinctly attentive. Certain rooms seem heavier, encouraging visitors to move more quietly without knowing why. The sensation is not oppressive, but solemn, as though the space demands respect. Doune Castle remains open to the public, its history carefully preserved and openly discussed. It stands as a monument to power, ambition, and political uncertainty. But when the last visitors depart and the castle grows still, some believe a queen continues her silent vigil, bound not by tragedy alone, but by memory itself. And as we leave Doune behind, our journey turns toward a far more intimate setting, where unseen hands are said to intrude without warning, bringing our exploration of Stirling's haunted places to its final and most personal encounter. The Settle Inn Stirling. Located along St. Mary's Wynd, the Settle Inn is a traditional public house, woven tightly into the daily life of Stirling. By day, it is a place of conversation and routine. By night, however, it has become known among staff for a series of unsettling experiences that feel intrusive rather than theatrical. The cellar is the center of reported activity. Staff members have described being pushed while descending the narrow stairs, the force strong enough to cause loss of balance. These incidents often occur without warning, leaving those affected shaken and unwilling to return below alone. No figure is ever seen, yet the sensation is described as deliberate rather than accidental. Cold spots are another common feature. Temperatures in certain areas of the cellar and back corridors are said to drop, suddenly creating pockets of chill that disappear as quickly as they form. These changes are not linked to weather or ventilation, and are often accompanied by a heavy feeling in the air. More curious are reports of phantom drinkers. Staff have described glimpsing figures seated quietly in the bar after closing time. When looked at directly, these figures vanish, leaving empty chairs and a sense of unease. The appearances are fleeting, never allowing for clear features, but distinct enough to be recognized as human shapes. Sounds also play a role. Footsteps are heard moving above or below when no one else is present. Glasses have been reported to clink softly, as though touched even when left undisturbed. These noises are subtle, often dismissed at first, until their repetition becomes difficult to ignore. Skeptics suggest that long hours, low lighting, and the building's age offer reasonable explanations. Old pubs settle and creak, and fatigue can heighten awareness. These factors are not denied by those who work there. What sets the Settle Inn apart is the physical nature of the experiences. Being pushed, feeling space invaded, or sensing movement nearby creates a personal response that lingers long after the moment has passed. The encounters do not feel performative or symbolic. They feel close. The Settle Inn continues to operate, as it always has, its reputation known quietly rather than advertised. But when the doors are locked and the last lights dim, some believe the pub does not fully empty. And with that final stop, our journey through Stirling comes to an end. A city of stone memory and silence, where the past does not always remain in the past. These places remind us that Stirling's ghost stories are shaped by real lives' loss and unfinished moments. They are only a few of the many haunted locations found here. If you know another, share it below and join Creepy Experience as more of Stirling's hidden past slowly comes into view.